VOD 10.
Pain at the pump, huh?
Lots of pain. This week especially. Prices have zipped right up because of what's going on in the Middle East.
Well, experts are saying that could go up to $5 a
it.
gallon this
it.
summer.
Well, remember a few years ago, it did something similar, and people said, we're going to change our ways, we're going to use less gas, and all they did was they sold their Hummers. I mean, nothing really changed. So here we are again, once, facing the nozzle.
All right, here's my question, because unfortunately I'm guilty of this way too many times. I'm like below empty. The light is on and like blinking red, and I'm driving along, and all of a sudden I see a gas station, and I look at the price and think, I'm not paying that. I think I see an ExxonMobil sign another half mile down. I mean, at this point, it's like I'm ready to get out of the car and push.
You're blinking red, though.
Yeah, I'm blinking red, but I don't want to pay the price. So how do we figure out if is it worth doing that?
I know. When you're blinking red, fill up, or at least get a couple dollars in there and then make the wise choice.
Have you been there? I mean, I think we've all been there.
I've been there. That's what I do. I say, oh, I don't want to pay that. I'll drive about. I have about a 5-minute window of patience where I'll drive for 5 minutes. Like, no, that's not good. No, that's good. And finally, I get so fed up, I take the last one when I could have probably saved about four stations ago if I was just willing to turn around in traffic.
The same thing.
But there are ways to plan this stuff ahead, which is what I just talked about on the show. If you would like, if you're really OCD and you want to just, nail it all down, your whole route planned out, you can do it. And there are ways to do it. And there are a lot of apps and websites that'll help you plan that.
All right, so tell us your favorite.
A lot of the apps that all use the same source, which is GasBuddy.com, because we talked about Cheap Gas and Fuel Finder. They both use GasBuddy. They're pretty good. I like Fuel Finder a little more, even though it costs $3, because it'll also tell you what's at the station. It'll say, is there a car wash? Is there a shop? It'll say, okay, it'll take you about 4 minutes to get there, and you can use it on your Droid or your iPhone or your iPod Touch, based on where you are or your zip code. So that's pretty handy. But, there's also times where you don't know where you are. You're on a road trip. You don't know the zip code of where you are. And I talk about another site. It's MapQuest, believe it or not. They have a gasprices.mapquest.com site where you can actually plan out your route for your trip and then say, show me the cheap gas along that way, and it'll show you the gas prices. So that way, if you don't know where you are, as long as you plan it out before you go, there you go. You can find your cheap gas. Yeah, but a lot of problems with all of these things, these apps, is that users submit their own prices a lot of times. They have a section where you go, oh, I see it's $2.50. You put it in. Well, that was a long time ago. Right. But yeah, you can send it in. But the problem is that stuff ages really quickly, and these apps are sometimes only as good as the number of users they have who are submitting. Because there's a lot of people who take the information and don't give it, and that's not good neighborly behavior. But it happens, and it affects these things. So it's good to have about 6 of these apps on your phone, or if you can. They're free, so fine, you have them. So you can keep checking, and see what's new and what's old.
So you can at least compare the prices from one site to the next.
Yeah.
All right, what about cash versus credit? This is something I've seen pop up in New Jersey more recently, where I get to the gas station, I'm always getting regular, and now I'm seeing this, you get the regular price only if you pay cash.
Yeah. That happens a lot, especially mom and pop places. The corporations are a little less likely to do it.
What's the benefit of that for them?
They don't pay the service charges on the credit cards, first of all. Because every time you make a credit card purchase, we're back to credit cards. We talked about this last week.
All connected.
All connected. The credit card company makes a little bit of money off the transaction, and often that comes out of the pocket of the vendor, and they just accept the risk, accept the loss in order to make the sale. American Express has particularly high ones, and they take a long time to pay sometimes, which is why even fewer places take American Express. Beside the point, cash absolves them of that. They don't have to pay those fees, and so it's straight into their pocket, and they're more likely to be happy.
But is it just due to this economy that I feel like we're seeing this more so now than we have before? At least I am in New Jersey.
Yeah, I would say. That sounds like it makes perfect sense.
And it really varies depending on the region. So like the Jersey Shore was doing it a lot more this summer, for example, than, up North Jersey during the winter time.
Well, there's 2 happy side benefits, though. It speeds up the process, and also you're not paying for something if you don't have the money. So you're not going to go into debt buying your gas if you don't have the cash.
Now, what are some gas stations to avoid?
Gas stations to avoid? I would think that the ones along really high traffic areas, the ones along the side of the highway, they don't really need to bargain. They don't no need for competition because there's always a steady flow. I would also suggest in really wealthy neighborhoods, you can find the gas might be a little higher for the same reasons. There's no reason to bring it down because people just don't think about it and they pay it no matter what. So you might want to look at other parts of town rather than sticking to the Tony ritzy section.
I wish there was a way to negotiate as if you're buying furniture. Listen, the guy down the street is like 302 and you're 304.
It's hard enough to figure out what the price is with all the 9s and the 9/10ths. Right. Why do we still price gas that way? It makes no sense to me. They're using decimal places that we don't even use in human being. Anyway.
What about wholesale clubs? Is it worth, sometimes if you drive by like a BJ, I don't think BJ's actually has a gas station, but like I think Costco, does Costco have a gas
It depends,
station?
though. Not all of them. Not all. See, no,
But
not
the
it's
lines
per
sometimes
unit.
are
Yeah.
just, you know, just down the block. And
Yeah.
you can't help but wonder, are you getting that much of a deal?
Yes, you can be, because again, they want to take a loss to bring you onto the property. So yeah, sometimes you can get about 10% if you buy some groceries at the same time. Again, be careful with your purchase of the groceries or you erase what you just saved. I think King Soopers is a big one in America that will do this, for example. So if there's King Soopers near you, you can probably get that deal.
Now, are there any other tips that we haven't talked about yet?
We talked upstairs about, upstairs being the studio, about how you can actually go to this website that'll calculate for you whether or not you would save money to go across town for the gas. Now, you have to know the capacity of your gas tank, you have to know your mileage, you have to know the price in both places, and you have to know the distance between them, which is a lot of information. But if you do, which you can always figure out most of that stuff on like a mapping program, you can find out, okay, would I save or lose money to drive around town for this cheaper gas? That's at bankrate.com. You can find it on Google if you look up Bankrate cheap gas. It'll be the first thing that pops up. But my argument is if you're going to go to that length, I mean, you're probably getting too obsessive about this.
I don't know. I might try. I was just going to say, ooh, that sounds great. I'll try it.
Did you have some car trouble today?
I had car trouble.
She tweeted this. I don't know if you saw it.
Flat tire.
Flat tire.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't my car, but nonetheless, on the way into the Holland,
That makes
just
it worse.
before
It's not your car. You don't know where the stuff is.
I'm sitting in the back seat, and then all of a sudden, you hear pop. There was a nail on the highway leading into the Holland Tunnel. I didn't think I'd make it
But you
here.
made it in, and your hands are clean. How did that happen?
Well, because I didn't do any of the work.
Oh, I see.
Thank God it was right by a gas station.
See? No, here we are. We're telling people to like be very careful about gas stations, and yet the nearest one helped you out.
I know, and I think the guy just kind of, just out of the goodness of his heart, it was 5:30 in the morning, waltzed over and helped, and I sat in the back seat, like kind of going up. I felt like I was on a ride at a carnival, because as they were hoisting the car up.
You sat in the car?
I sat in the car.
So they tell you not to do it? Oh, no, they tell me not to do that. That's right. You can probably do that because you're a wisp of a thing. If I do that, they're like, we're going to need a couple more jacks.
No, they let me stay in. They said, just stay put. We'll be done in a second.
Well, all right. Well, I'm glad you made it here.
I'm just so happy I'm here to talk to you.
Thank you. Me too. And about gas. So hopefully people can save a little bit of money this way, because it is going to get worse before it gets better, if it gets better. And don't forget, summer travel season is coming up. So prices are, I think airlines are going to start to raise their prices. Cruise lines, you know, we saw it all a couple years ago. Get ready. Have your plan in place now. And if you can, figure out ways to cut your gas expenses, even if that's carpooling. I think now's the time.
Your travel.
And Jason, we had a question on the chat room. How is this going to affect airline prices? Tickets?
I think it will affect them. You know, they had the fuel surcharges a few years ago. Do you remember how we introduced the baggage charges a few years ago, saying, oh, it's because the gas prices are too much. And then the gas prices went back down, but the fuel they didn't go away. I wouldn't be surprised to see even more fees being thrown in there for them to sort of justify the gas prices. Really, they're justifying the fees. So I think it will affect prices pretty quickly. And because it's been so rapid, they might need to slap on a surcharge rather than adjusting inside the fare. And cruise lines have been known to do that as well. And so all modes of travel are going to be affected by this.
Well, you're a travel guru, so what are your recommendations for us at this point, looking ahead, thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get away to this great vacation with these prices?
Well, first of all, use the tips. If you're road tripping, the ones we just shared, there's really not a way around this stuff. I mean, if the less fuel you use, the less you're going to be affected by high fuel prices. And I don't want to say
riding
stay at
our
home.
bike to like the vacation in the park.
There's something to be said for this. There's something to be said, like when you go to Yosemite, park the car and don't move it again, and ride your bike everywhere. I'd personally be happy to see people be a little bit more active and to be a little bit more responsible. But it's not always going to be possible depending on where you live and depending on the plans you have. And if you've always wanted to go to Paris, there's really not a lot of ways to get there that don't involve spending a lot of fuel. So I think this is something we have to live with and figure out ways around and be more resourceful than we've been asked to be in our daily lives for a very long time. I mean, we're going to have to be more resourceful about a lot of things, food included. We're going to have to learn how to make more delicious food out of less interesting ingredients that we can't afford.
That could be next week's segment. Can you come back with a demo?
I would love to. I would love to.
Throw on a chef's hat.
I interviewed Anthony Bourdain this week for AOL Travel, and the story will be up early in the week. And we talked about just this topic. I said, how come the food that you get on the street in Haiti or Vietnam is so incredible? And he said, it has to be. They can't buy a salmon fillet. They have very limited resources and limited money, and they have to make the most of it. And they've learned to do that, Americans have forgotten how to do that. And this is how it relates to what you're just asking. We've forgotten how to sort of make the most of a little because we've had so much. And now we're entering a period where we're really going to have to actually be more strategic about how we place our resources. And gas is going to be first on that list because so many of us depend on it to even make our money to get to our work.
Before we let Jason go, do we have any other questions from our chat room, Bryce?
We cleared everything all up this time.
Great.
No one has any questions about gas.
No stragglers.
Well,
You did a phenomenal
You
job.
did a great job. I think you covered everything. Listen,
Everyone's asleep.
you have an assignment next week. Come back with that cooking demo.
You start
Everyone
talking
really
about
has some gas.
You start talking about food, and they just start talking about like pizza and noodles and stuff like that. So.
They see they're hungry.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
There you go. Come back with food.
Well, hello, chat room. I followed the show last week after I left here, and they're
Great.
so interesting. They're so engaged.
Our
Yeah.
chat room is great. I mean,
So,
and we have regulars who come back every week, all the time, and they always have great insight. They have great questions. We love them all.
Yeah, I can see why.
Join in on the fun. Come back again with food.
I would love to.
Jason, it was so great
Good to
seeing
see
you.
you.
2 weeks in a row.
Right, I'm lucky.
Have a great week.
Right, you too.